And here is where, in theory, once I locate the asset and update it with the new haircut, that old, you remember the old r/news logo transition? It would play right now, and then it would like fade to me. Something like that would happen. Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome to what I suppose is like kind of a bit of a test episode, though I should start out by saying a very big thank you to patrons last night who kind of did a test stream with me. So one of the main things we did, I'm not kidding. One of the main things we did was just get transitions down. Here, let me fix this real quick. Just get like these transitions down. So basically that I could cut between like this window to this window to this window and everything would look super smooth. That was one of the main things we did. The reemergence of r/news. So in the past, it was like multiple 10 to 20 minute videos talking about news events and things like that. What would I say it is now? You're still going to see clips of it. I think at some point we will primarily move the live stream portion to Twitch. I think that will actually happen. I'll give you an update on whether or not I do a new handle. I probably won't do a new handle for that. I'll probably use my existing Jimmy Alexander Snow, I think, or I might change the handle to r/news or something. I still have to decide all of that, but we'll probably do like what we're doing right now. Okay, let's just be real. What I'm describing is that there will be an element on this channel that is very similar to the way a lot of leftist YouTubers already do their thing. Vosh, Xanderhal, even Hassan. It's going to be that kind of thing where we're going to be scrolling, we're going to be looking at news, and then things are going to get clipped out and released as individual clips. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're looking at. And this is going to be the thing that happens, one of the main things that happens over on this channel, with other stuff coming to this channel as well, including a series called 8-Minute Murders, one that I'm very excited about. Hope I can pull off and hope it doesn't have to become 12-minute murders or 20-minute murders, because the idea of the more compressed format is what I think is appealing about the approach I'm trying to take, as well as a series called My Mixed Feelings, which might sometimes be rants that I go on r/news. The main idea, though, is that, one, this is built to be interactive. I can have the chat up on the screen, as you see here. I can be seeing what people want me to check out, see what people are hoping I will take a look at. I can put this side of my face in darkness so you don't see this giant, it's seriously like the top third of a marble cyst growing in my beard right now that I got to get figured out. There's just all kinds of things. But it occurred to me that like I'm still having a lot of my r/news and sometimes show angst. And with those things happening less often in the other channel being primarily Dear Mr. Atheist anymore, it occurred to me that I might enjoy bringing back something that I used to do and be able to have that more interactive thing. Hi there, Sam. Good to see you. So that's what I'm talking about. How many people will watch the live streams? I don't know. I don't know how entertaining people are going to find the different stuff, but we'll do our thing. Now, Reddit it's going to be a big part of it, because I just want to bring into my world of where I waste the most time and now start wasting some of y'all's time. But like, I am addicted to certain Reddits and have lots to say about lots of things and am not actually putting those things out into the world. So anyway, this is built with the ability for you to see my computer, what I'm doing. And if there are specific news stories people want to see too, you can just say so. You can say so on this little deal here. Now, another thing, I need a much bigger water container. I love this pure black Starbucks cup. I love that cup, but it holds a deceptively small amount of water. I've been approached by companies before that are like, hey, let us sponsor you for our water bottle. But they seriously wanted so much more. Like they wanted to pay me like 10% of what, say, Adam and Eve pays me for one 30-second integration, plus give me a free water bottle. And they were usually like $100 to $200 water bottle, these things that were so cool. But then they wanted like 15 deliberate mentions for that. And I was just like, I out of pride, I can't do that. Anyway, let's jump into some of these things. And like I said, if people are like, Jimmy, we want to know your thoughts on this specific news thing that happened or whatever, that is always okay to suggest. You can always throw that in there and we'll take a look. I don't know how long these streams will go for. It could be a super long time, could be super short. The idea is to entertain you while I entertain myself. It's the hopes that we will have. Now, look, I am addicted to the subreddit r/antiwork. Okay, already you probably are aware I am a leftist. I'm still figuring out exactly where I am in on there. I'm still reading theory. I'm still I'm still in the development process. But r/antiwork isn't just for leftists, even though it's kind of like you might find yourself getting radicalized as a leftist if you start taking Lexi. But it is definitely for, let's just say you're still a capitalist. I don't think even if you are a capitalist, you can look at the current work culture in the United States and be like, love that. That's all good stuff. That's all fine by me. If you can, it just seems to me something would have to be very, very wrong with you. So anyway, let's start out with this post from r/antiwork, literally the top of my Reddit feed right now. Because this is the kind of stuff you see that you're just like, it's so enraging. It's so, dare I say, stupid, even though I know apparently parts of the internet have agreed we don't use that term anymore. I never agreed. How dare you? Let me also, especially in these first episodes, as we're getting going, starting off here in November, if ever there are things where you're like, hey, audio levels seem clippy or whatever, you can always put that up there. Now, sometimes it will be a person just giving a random opinion that I won't care about, but sometimes it won't. I'm just kidding. I will care, but might disagree. Do go ahead and share with me if you think there's something that I should know. And also, look, I know it's only 3 frames, but I really want everyone to appreciate the amount of work that we put into making all 3 of these. You could transfer from any to any, and it happens smooth and pretty. And a lot of work went into making this happen. I just want to point that out, and I want everyone to appreciate it. And this is just for one scene, like just doing Reddit or I guess a web browser on YouTube specifically, because this isn't even like Twitch chat. That's just so. I have to do a whole new thing for when it comes time to mess around on Twitch. All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Sam. All right. So let's start with this. This is enraging. On r/antiwork, right at the top of my feed. And yes, I am speaking in a way where I expect to clip things in the future. Because so as to introduce, so I don't have to record anything special. But here is the title of this. And I want to hear from people in the chat and stuff about similar experiences or just ridiculous rules where companies will so make everything about like you have to be not just almost an employee, but a consumer of ours as well. Spend your money at the company store. You know what I mean? So I'm being accused of stealing company property because I bought my own Keurig cups. I brought in my own Keurig cups. Instead of buying them from the company snack bar. How should I tell my boss to go fuck herself? The little Keurig cups at work. Do you all want me to try and actually narrate this thing? The little Keurig cups at work are 50 cents each. Very reasonable, but I don't like the flavors they keep stocked. So I bought my own cups in from home and have been using those instead. Better flavor and all of that. There's a Keurig machine, 2 of them actually. We have some serious coffee addicts here. In the break room that the employees are allowed to use, so that's what I've been using. My boss is a notorious tightwad and a micromanaging asshole. I was getting my coffee yesterday morning using my own Keurig cups that I purchased on my own time, and she asked, "Where did you get those?" All offended like. The ones I bought are easily distinguishable from the company purchased ones. Mine are red. The company ones are blue. When I said I brought them in from home, she said that was illegal and I was stealing company resources and to stop immediately. I just burst out laughing. I honestly thought she was kidding. She continued that I was stealing the water since I had to pay for the privilege to use the coffee machines and raised her voice for me to stop laughing and that I could be fired. That's when I realized she was serious. I was nearly speechless. I kept repeating, "Are you serious? It's water from a coffee machine. It's a single cup of coffee." And she kept saying, "Nope, stop immediately or we'll fire you for theft," again and again and again. That I had to use the company purchased ones and no others. I'm going in tomorrow and I'm getting my damn cup of coffee, and I will absolutely die on this hill if I have to. I've worked here for 5 years and have had no problem escalating this up to the CEO. Oh, and will have no problem escalating this up to the CEO if necessary, or just getting a new job. This is ridiculous. I'm like trying to put some of my acting chops into this. You all tell me whether or not you feel like it's helping make the show or not. How should I tell my boss she can go fuck herself if she brings this up again and threatens me further? So that is the original post. We'll jump into the edit here in a second. I want to just say, because I'm going to take the opportunity, I am an employer. Technically, I have employees. And I would just like to point out that at the studio, there is a Keurig machine and coffee K-cups are provided. And periodically, I ask one of my employees to go and purchase new ones. They are given a company card to do so. They don't have to pay for it themselves. It's not out of their pocket. They get to, on the clock, go to the store, and they are allowed to pick the flavors. So it's not even just a matter of like, if my employees didn't like the flavors, it would mean they're buying K-cups they don't like. And so that's how I think you have a company break room. Personally, let's all pat me on the back. Let's see. What are some of y'all saying here too? I mean, Walmart gives a discount on everything, but so you spend your check there. Yeah, no, I've noticed that too. And that's kind of the funny thing. I feel like there was a South Park episode forever ago that kind of like talked about that a bit. So I've just got this bump on my back that's like hurting that I'm going to keep probably poking throughout everything here. There is this. Yeah, there are a lot of places that do that. I think Whole Foods is the same way, where it's like, okay, we're going to pay you this much, but part of your pay is also the money you'll save on basic things like groceries. And then obviously every store has predatory marketing practices. So you end up actually spending more there on things you don't need. I don't know. It's a whole thing. This story though, let's read the edit. Well, I posted this a few hours ago and came back to several thousand comments and upvotes. Holy hell. Don't worry, I'll keep you all updated. I'm absolutely printing off that requirement for potable water and keeping it on me. Thank you all, the people who recommended that. It seems the general consensus is tell her straight up to go fuck herself. So I think I'll do just that. Thanks, everyone. Now listen. I don't know what the employment requirements are in a place like this individual is. I will say I am worried about the actual saying go fuck yourself, because one worries that could somebody, I told you this bump is just bugging the crap out of me, and I'm just like, ugh, get ahead already. That's a gross detail that nobody wanted to know. Okay. There's the thing about actually telling your boss to go fuck herself is a little bit of an issue of if you are in an area where they can say they then let you go for creating a hostile work environment, they may be able to deny you unemployment benefits on that basis or other things. So I would be a little bit cautious taking random internet strangers who have no stake in what happens to you and would be frankly excited if something bad happened to you because of the drama of it all. I would just make sure you know what you're doing here. Do you have to pay for each toilet flush also? Yeah, I know. It's the idea that the water is something you are stealing, which in reality, I'm just like, as far as basic office stuff goes, if the office was constantly running out of supplies because people were stealing, I guess that would be something to consider. But if, again, like with my own employees, if they were like, oh my God, I need sticky notes, and I didn't get sticky notes. I just take some sticky notes from work. I don't care. Yeah, this is such a typical capitalist. You know, it's funny too, because there is two Oh, I'm looking forward to reading this one too, by the way. In fact, let me see if I can find. Yes. Okay. So here's the original, and we'll read this here in a second. There are two problems at work here. One, oppressive company policies that are made where it's like, the only thing you should be thinking about the welfare of the company even when you're off work. Everything that you do should be thinking about that. Now, look, there is a reasonable thing where you can say, like, if you work here, you can't just go off work. Like, you have to consider some level of you represent the company when you're off the clock in regard to the company itself. So, for example, if I hire somebody and I find out that off work they are like actively harming the company, whether that's reputation, profits, or whatever, I would have a problem with that, and there would definitely be a discussion about the person living or working there. Not necessarily a termination automatically, but certainly we would begin with a discussion. So that's where I can understand it. However, there's a lot of these companies that are like, when you're off the clock, you're still on the clock. So types of things you put, like you're representing Chick-fil-A when you post Black Lives Matter things on Instagram. I don't remember if it was Chick-fil-A, but I remember there was a company that was like, it's come to our attention that a lot of our employees are sharing certain hashtags and things on their social media. When you are off the clock here, you still represent the company. We recommend you take those down very quickly, or else. Basically, that is outrageous. That is outrageously too far. Now, then there gets to be these things that are like, what do you and don't you support? Because on the one hand, it's like, do I support the ability for a religious company, in as much as we are existing in the systems, types of systems we exist in now? Do I support a religious company denying somebody a position because they are not following, they either aren't a member of the religion or they don't follow some tenet of a religion? So for example, like, do I think it is okay for a company that is religious based, like a Baptist company, to deny a queer person because they don't follow the religion, the religious rules about being queer? Well, that sounds like an obvious, like, no, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's straight up discrimination. But then on the same token, I wonder if I had an employee who, they're working for me, and then they are also very vocally pro forced birth, what the movement that wants you to call themselves, they want you to call them pro life, but pro forced birth. Should I, as a company owner, be able to say, like, you are out there espousing views in direct contradiction to our company, with there being a public declaration and awareness from people that you work here? That's, it's this thing where it's like, how do you put up these lines and things? And like, my company's not a religious company, but obviously we advocate for certain things. And so it's like, if we're advocating for certain things, what is appropriate for me as a company to expect out of employees in their personal life, if they are in their personal life publicly advocating contrary to my views. The water thing would be like you saying to your employees, you have only 20 posts, it's per week. If you want more than one, that is theft. You have only 20 posts, it's per week. I think there might be a typo here, or I'm just an idiot not understanding what you mean. Yeah, I like that too. Somebody pointed out this is basically, ask not what your employer can do for you, ask what you can do for your employer. Which even in that scenario where it's like, ask not what this is the great Democrat hero JFK, ask not what you can do for your country, or ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Which, as a humanist sort of thing, is fine. Like, ask not what humans can do for you, ask what you can do for another human. But when it's so tied into patriotism and such, it's just gross. All right, so here's the deal. This person quit their jobs 2 weeks ago. They reversed all right, this is the title. I quit my job 2 weeks ago. In fact, I should set this up so it can be clipped out a little bit better. I know I can do Brandy. Look, the millionaires and the billionaires, they are taking all of our Halloween candy. How come 90% of the Kit Kat bars are going to 1% of the American people? Okay, we're done with it. It's time for a revolution. No more of this Halloween theft. We're going to move on to this next post here. And again, another r/anti-work. Then I want to go to r/am I the asshole? Because I love those, and I love the interactions that are possible because of those. Anyway, I quit my job 2 weeks ago, and they reversed my final direct deposit without notifying me in retaliation. So this is from the manager, who is apparently unironically called Karen, which almost, doesn't that kind of make you worry that this is fake? That their manager is actually called Karen. Granted, there are Karens out there. There are definitely Karens that are managers, I assume. But the coincidence is heavy, and you're like, okay, maybe. But look, let's read this. This is from the person's employer, Karen. I received your voicemail message. Here are some facts to help you sort things out as you asked. Speaking of notification, you weren't concerned about providing us with a 2-week notification, as is standard with employment, when you decided to let us know within a couple of hours of your shift. Here, let's pop this up like this. Within a couple of hours of here's my Karen voice. Within a couple of hours, your shift, that you were quitting without any consideration for your coworkers. You did not return company property, keys and shirts, since you worked less than 3 months. We paid you for hours of at-home, remote training, and 2 weeks of training in the spa, only for you to quit 2 weeks after that. Within those 2 weeks, you had 2 call-outs, a complete waste of time and money for the business. If anything, you owe us money. Now listen, while I am definitely excited to show you the other part, I can understand the frustration if you have a good working environment. If somebody were to join my team and they only stayed long enough to basically train, which is that is a monetary drain. That's only the company spending money. Now, again, with the way things should work and stuff, I'm not saying that means very much, but you're literally like, okay, you're not even going to be doing your job for 2 weeks. You won't be doing anything that potentially could bring in revenue. You're only going to be a cost to the company for the next 2 weeks. I can understand that frustration, especially if you actually provide a good work environment. But it's kind of one of those things where you just have to deal with it, where you have to just go like, sometimes this is going to happen and it's going to suck. It's unlikely to ruin the company. And it's just sort of a built-in, like, yes, we have to train them. There's usually a temporary period. And it's like from the worker side or from the employer side, don't most jobs start with a probation period where they're like, yeah, here's the probation period. We are going to legally stretch this as much as possible. So whatever investment you might be making in time, effort, and time and effort fucking matter. Mental investment fucking matters a fucking lot. A fucking ton, actually. Whatever investment that is, we are going to push this to its limits to be able to just, if we want to get rid of you, just get rid of you with no regard for you. And then you're gone. You're just done. It's one of those things where it's like, I would be frustrated in that same position and then just accept it and move on. And I'm not going to send an email like this, fucking whining to the person of, but what about the company? And it always comes from these middle people who their investment never makes any sense anyway in the company, like where it's like, this doesn't affect you. This isn't falling back on you, but you have this singular power over me and you are eager, almost always fucking eager to flaunt it and abuse it. All right. Reply from Karen. Reply to Karen. So many things I could say in response, but I don't want to waste my time with it. Oh, no. Okay. So it looks like he must have replied. And I don't know why I'm assuming he. but something makes me think that this was a man. But now I don't know. Where was the? Let's go back to these posts because I want to see if was there included. Oh, that's not the right one. Was there included his response or her response or their response? Some help support you. Oh, okay. This is the response to Karen. Karen, here are some facts to help you sort things out. I am one of 6 employees since August to quit without notice. This isn't a me problem. Maybe check in on your manager. Lindsay, maybe stop blaming all your wage slave employees for once. 2, I've been sick with a kidney infection, which is the result of the bladder infection I had to contend with that I had to call out for on the 9th. I've had bigger priorities than turning in 2 black shirts and a set of keys that nobody told me would get my last paycheck, that me getting my last paycheck would be contingent upon for hours that I worked. I thought with you being a nurse, quote unquote, that maybe you'd have some compassion, but some things are more clear to me now. By the way, compassion or no compassion, I worked those hours and you are legally obligated to pay me. Yes, training is paid, whether from home or in person. You are required to, let's pop over to the next one. You are required to pay employees for all hours they work. I owe you nothing. Your business owes me my final paycheck. Also, get your days right. I finished my training a full month before I quit. Withholding an employee's final paycheck is considered wage theft and is illegal. If this is not resolved by tomorrow afternoon, I will be in contact with the Ohio Attorney General Office and my parents' lawyer, as well as filing a complaint with the Ohio Department of Commerce. My partner will be by this afternoon to drop off my keys and shirt to you, as I am too sick to do. Since you seem to think those items are worth taking over $300 that I earned anyway because you're angry about how I quit, which is, again, against the law. Hope this helps you make better choices. Savage. Absolutely savage. I think that is the last one. So now we can go and look at the response Karen had to that. This titled update, she folded like a house of cards. Karen says, so many things I could say in response, but don't want to waste my time with it. We will pay you. Have no energy or time for this fight. Take the money and feel good about providing no value for it and handling your employment poorly. It's not about the cost of the keys or the shirts, but thanks for returning them anyway. It's the right thing to do. Yes, we did make a poor choice with this business, primarily in thinking we could find good quality, mature, responsible, accountable employees that could work as a team and help us build it. Seems to be extremely hard to find these days. For that reason alone, I wish every day I could take back that choice. I admit it very easily. Very bad decision on our part. This is like the opposite of that. Like, I guess my biggest flaw is that I work too hard. It's like I guess my biggest mistake was hiring you. What a mistake I made. Like, it's like, I am going to deprecate myself a little bit and insult you. Other than that, I'll pass on your advice. I'll pass on your advice about making good choices. I bet you will, Karen. I bet you will. That is a satisfying end to that. But yeah, again, it's a matter of, do I understand the frustration? If you own a company, especially a small company, I understand the frustration. But these are the costs and these are the risks and the things that are built in that you have to prepare for. Sometimes people quit during training and you have to pay them for that. Imagine 5 days. They did nothing except train, nothing to actually make money for the company, and you have to pay them. You just have to deal with it. That's just something you have to get over. It's one of the things that are built in, and it sucks for people who are trying to build from something small. Like, I feel a lot for small business owners where it's like, even as myself a leftist, where I'm like advocating for certain employment conditions and things to change, where I go like, this is so much, certain things that we need to do will hurt a lot of small businesses because we need to rein in big business. And so you have to be careful when forming those regulations and stuff to try and be cautious about application to small business, but also you can't make it like a human rights thing, like okay, here's a law that applies only to big businesses. It says you can't fire people for being queer. Well, that needs to be applied across the board. But there can be reasons, certainly, that are, or there can be other things, certainly, where it's like this level of thing has to be considered a little bit differently from a small company versus a big company. But at the end of the day, there's this whole thing about the, like, you have to be able to provide a living wage. You have to be able to provide a full-time employee should be able to afford to live. So if you have to be able to provide a living wage, there are these people that are like, well, if the minimum wage goes up to this amount, so-and-so won't be able to afford to hire work. That is also one of those things you have to deal with because it is just built in. Look, I have a friggin' media production company, I guess you could call it. And you know what would make my media production company a lot better? These cameras and robots that are like $100,000. Everything would just, my whole life would be better and I wouldn't be depressed anymore. But just because that would make it better, just because the ideal version of my company looks like that, if I can't afford to do that, then I don't get to do that. If you can't afford to pay an employee a living wage for full-time work, then you don't get to have an employee. That's just how it goes. That's just how it works. All right, let's see if there's any others on here that we want to check out. Just people complaining. I like this one. Anyone on this sub actually love their job but are still anti-work. This is definitely like me in the past too, where it's like I've had jobs I really, really liked and yet would still be like, yeah, government regulation needs to come in. I remember the first time I got a job making $12.50 an hour feeling like a badass because I went from like I was working prior to that. My first job, I worked $5.15 an hour. My second job, I worked $7.25 an hour. You know why I worked for $7.25 an hour? Because the minimum wage went up to $7.25. Otherwise, that place would have paid me $5.15 too. I guarantee it. So I pay so I'm working for $7.25 an hour. Next job, around the same thing. I think I was making like $7.50 to $8, but now I was working closer to home. It was more convenient, so that's why I took it. But after that, I got a job at a Verizon like indirect sales place, and I was making $12.50 an hour, and thought I was just like the worst. Like, oh yeah, I'm like 19, taking home $2,000 a month. Absolutely on top of the world, thinking like I am the cock of the walk because my proximity to poverty is like slightly further away than it was before. And so now it's just an interesting, like, even at that job, which I loved that job, it would have been like, yeah, but for real though, like I should have health care. I didn't have health care at that job. And that basically ruined my life because I ended up breaking my leg. Well, okay, I didn't have health care at that job after a while. When I broke my leg, I was technically still on my parents' insurance. Then when I moved out, my dad lied and said, oh, no, the 26 thing only applies if you're a dependent here. Yeah, what a douche. I would have paid for the difference because it only costs like probably another like $30, $40 a month to have me on that health insurance versus going to try and find some of my own, which would have been hundreds of dollars. Yeah, that sucked. And then I got really sick and my chronic illness and some other problems came up that were thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in medical debt. Anyway, let's see what this one is. Haven't got paid a single dollar at a new job I worked for the past 2 months. Owner finally brought me a check and it bounced, so I quit on the spot. Manager sends me this. Hi, blank. Just said both of your checks bounced, which means you haven't been paid at all. I hope that isn't why you quit. How would you like to go forward? Look, so this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, you got to pay your employees. But I'm not at all like, this is so funny that I'm in anti-work and I keep defending stuff and I'm not. You have to pay your employees. You can't have like your first priority has to be your employees paid. And I have had months because we've had months where we struggled where I go like, God, hope I can pay my bills after I pay my employees, but I still paid them first. You have to. Now look, do understandable mistakes happen? Yeah. Could it have been a banking issue or a problem? Yeah. And so I could definitely see a situation where it's like, hey, I quit on the spot, and it's like this person is actually reaching out and saying like, hey, I'll get you paid. Sorry. If it came with that, where it was like, I'm really sorry for the mistake. I will pay you out of my own pocket for the moment, and then we'll fix the error, and you can just pay me back if that's okay. We'll figure out blah, 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 get you back. I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. That kind of thing. If that was the situation, then it'd be fine. In other words, I think that like there's often nuances to a lot of situations where you're like, you don't really know what's happening behind the scene and online. And I can imagine a subreddit, because there's no subreddit without a ton of toxicity as soon as there's more than 10 people in there. And so it's like, it's a matter of like, okay, is it this big of a deal, or what is actually going on here? And when they said like somebody even pointed out, how would I like to go forward to small claims court? They may literally be saying like, we can still pay you. When I hear, how do you want to go forward? What I'm hearing is like, do you want us to pay you and you come back, or we'll still pay you, but you aren't coming back because of the mistake? Is that what's happening? There's an innocent version of that message is what I'm saying. Still, somebody fucked up and shouldn't have fucked up. But I try to remember the humanity of it all. I don't know. Anyway, $20.33 is the minimum hourly rate in Australia. This is the chat above me here. I'll read it. I can't actually. Casual loading adds an extra $3. Even with the exchange rates, that's pretty good. Most places pay about $26. So I think we're talking about Australian money, right? So let's see. Australian to US dollar. And we're saying about $26. So yeah, that's coming in about $19.56. That should be roughly a living wage. So your minimum wage before that's the normal wage. Let's see what your 2033 is the minimum, which is about $15.29 American. Our federal minimum wage, there are states with higher than this. I think I live in one. I think it's 10 something here in Colorado. I pay more than 15 an hour even, which is what I think the minimum wage should be. Minimum wage should be 15 an hour to my employees. But I think it's like 10 something here. The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.29. 25 cents. $7.25. Like you would need like 4 roommates in a 2-bedroom apartment to be able to afford to live, and usually a worse part of town, even though you are putting in that 40 hours of work. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's come back here. Let's have a look. Office assistant. What hours are you available to work? Are you aware that this is not 100% remote? We are located at blank. Is it a problem to work from this area? I love the snootiness and the pride, you can't even don't ding my ego. You dinged it. You got my ego dinged up. Please put this information in the job listing. I am seeking remote jobs, meaning fully remote, and I'm not interested in such a position. And then the person writes, I don't need your feedback. Good luck with your search. And it's like, it sounds like you do. If every time, think about this. This is the first message you have to, well, I don't know if it's the first message, but first one on a Monday at least. This is the message that you're starting off with. Clearly you're having to clarify this with everyone. Do you know what I mean? This is clearly a clarification you're having to put in. It's just annoying. But 2 months. Well, I get their mistakes, but 2 months. Did the person in the last one say it was 2 months? For 2 months it happened? Because I assume after the first month, if there was a mistake, they fixed the mistake. But let's say it was like so potentially I'm just like thinking about my own payroll. I could have a payroll where I pay my normal payroll and a mistake happens. So I pay a manual payroll out, and that I have to fill in the details manually. So a person receives that check, let's say it's a day late. They receive that check. They still get their money. Technically, if I then don't go back to my normal payroll system and fix whatever caused the problem in the first place, I would absolutely just have the same issue the next month. So again, I'm not trying to defend the concept of not paying workers and not paying them on time. You absolutely have to pay on time. I do recall when we were switching our payment system, something happened in the first month and I was like, hey, what the fuck, payroll system? And they're like, oh yeah, whenever this specific situation comes up, you're going to want to try to pay like 3 days early as opposed to a day early. Otherwise everything comes a day late. And so I told my employees, I was like, look, the system has already taken all the money. If the money is already out of the business account. So it is coming. It's not, but it's going to come a day late. If anybody needs money, you can borrow it from me and just pay me back. If you need it that day earlier, if that's a big deal, just let me know. I'll cover you for the day. And so it was like, it was good that all of them didn't, like, if every employee and contractor had said like, yeah, actually, can you go ahead and loan? I wouldn't have been able to afford it. I had to go and get a loan anyway. So it's good that that didn't happen. But yeah, it's just, I try to be understanding is all I'm saying. It's a mistake that could happen. And at the end of the day, there should be accountability of some kind for that mistake. Whether that's just saying like, hey, I'm very sorry. Like, apologize. This was our problem. Like, oh, I fucked up. In some situations, that's going to be all that's necessary. And in some situations, it might be more where it's like, oh my God, your credit card bill ended up being late because of me. Let me pay the fee and let me give you like a little extra for like, because this, probably took a little ding to your credit or something. So let me give you a little, sorry, I hurt your credit a little bit bonus. Though I assume most cards, if you're just late by a day or two, it's not going to be significant. It probably doesn't even report as late for a few days. But I'm just saying, with all things understanding, especially if I just want to know how things proceeded from there and how it got to that point. It is, even though I love this sub for this very reason, it is very dangerous to judge any situation on not just a limited amount of information, but a limited amount of information from only one side. Now, also that said, if we're saying one side is a small person against a giant corporation, you're never even going to get the real side from the giant corporation or anything close to reality. Like, it's just built that way. Let's see. Oh, Jay, listen. No one should ever worry about whether they can financially support this channel or not. If people have the resources to do it, it makes a huge difference. I appreciate it so much, but having your support in the iteration of your attention, your ears, your eyes that you're watching, don't feel like that means nothing to me, because it means a whole lot. So I appreciate what you're saying there in the chat and everything, but seriously, don't sweat it. Do not sweat it. There have been people before who have been told me like things almost like they're saying that they were like choosing between like, hey, I want to support you, but if I do, I can't buy groceries. And so I don't know. And I'm like, then buy groceries. Do not support. I've even had patrons come along and be like, hey, this thing happened this month. I got to take it away. I'm really, really sorry. And I'm like, first of all, don't be sorry. But second of all, just so you know, the way Patreon works, when you leave, they're going to try and charge you for it right away. So let me go in and refund some of your past charges so that around the same time these things happen, it'll balance out. Or if they've already quit, just be like, let me go in and make sure those are refunded. You'll notice they're gone, but they should be back in a few days, that kind of thing. Like, a person should always prioritize their existence and such over myself. Let's see. My dad worked in a failing restaurant and would pay employees cash nightly to make sure their bills were paid. There are always ways to handle this type of situation. Yes, though paying anybody nightly is a different type of stress nightmare because of the way taxes work. It's like, yeah, you don't pay taxes according to necessarily exactly what that check is. Let's say you make $1,500 a month and you report that you're paying $1,500 every 2 weeks, or twice a month. You're making $1,500 twice a month. And that's how it's reported. Twice a month, $1,500. Let's say that there is some check that comes in where it's like, hey, you got some ridiculous commission for something. And now one of your checks is $4,000. Well, when you pay taxes, you have to pay it as though every check is 4,000. So while that's going to increase your refund, it does fuck up the taxing. So anytime there's any kind of variable thing, it's just so frustrating. Hey, thank you, Alma Tadero. I appreciate that very, very much. We've got $20 of MX currency, which I assume is Marxist currency, because this is a leftist channel. I think I'm out. Everybody loves that sound, right? All right. Let's just have a little scrolly scroll. See what other kinds of news are out there. I love these Ask Reddits. You're definitely going to see a lot of Ask Reddit posts on this channel, I feel like. On r/science, excessive CEO to worker pay ratio boosts companies' profits in the short term, but not long run, may motivate employees to cheat and misbehave toward customers, and harms customer relationships. As companies have little incentive to reduce the pay ratio in the short run, regulation may be needed. Yeah, no kidding. Like, even just having a limit of, if you are a corporation, the highest earner cannot make... Isn't it ridiculous that there are numbers that we could throw out there? And it sounds like obvious, like, oh, but that would, in practical... It shouldn't be a practical thing that at a company, the lowest earner makes 1/100th as much as the highest earner. Like, that's the kind of number where it should just be like, oh, yeah, I mean, that definitely should be a lot if we needed it, but there's no way that's even an issue. And it is an issue. When does Yu-Gi-Oh! Masters come out? Let's see. Fragile White Redditor. Okay, so you all need the context of this title because it looks bad if you don't know. But let's see what this thing is. The racist shit that is allowed on Reddit is insane. There's a sub that only white people can join. You actually have to prove you are white with a pic to even contribute anything to the sub. No black people allowed. That is some serious racist shit. Now replace the word white with black, and it becomes a true story. We can do that, but what happens if a sub only for white people popped up on Reddit? It would be instantly removed. Racism is wrong, period. First of all, I'm not aware of any subreddit such as this even existing. Second of all, but what about a White History Month arguments have already been debunked, and the reason why there are differences in certain rules and approaches to things is to act as a balancing power. Now, in the case of this actual thing, again, not aware of any subreddit such as this. Maybe I'm wrong and it does exist. The title reeks of "As a Black Gay Guy" is a reference to a tweet that was made a while back where a person claimed to be a black gay guy and was saying like how he loves Trump, I think it was, but the person had forgotten to switch to the alt account where they were pretending to be a black gay guy, and it was a white straight dude. Well, a white allegedly straight dude, we should say. Everybody is allegedly straight. Everyone who claims to be straight is only allegedly, I mean. That's a joke. That's a joke. Ha, ha, ha. Something roast. Lil Dicky. Something. Okay. Watch people die inside. What is happening? Oh, wow. She mad. She mad. What happened to her? She just booing and then just takes on an angry face. Okay. Let's see. This was sad. I saw discarded car on ocean floors, deadly for hermit crabs. You just get thousands of these hermit crabs piling up. Now, one thing I will tell you, hermit crabs are like, I don't even know what to compare them to. They're kind of like a lot of types of germs and stuff where it's like millions of them exist so that most of them can die. And they're also very, very competitive. So like, obviously I do the saltwater tank stuff, and there are a lot of people who go out and buy hundreds of hermit crabs at a time. And it, in the short term, will clean your tank very quickly. However, a year later, only like 20 of them will still be alive. So rather than do that, I try to get larger hermit crabs and fewer of them. Halloween hermit crabs, the best. Let's see. Top minds of Reddit. It's this they're talking about the fuck Joe Biden, let's go Brandon meme. Basically, there was a I think it was at a race car event where the announcers thought let's go Brandon was being chanted, but it was a bunch of people actually chanting fuck Joe Biden. When you are older, you'll be more conservative. I was conservative when I was younger. Could not be like less different than my old self. I guess I could be less different. I could go even more, much more radical, maybe even authoritarian. But the reasonable place is, because they tell you when you grow older, if you have a brain, you'll become more conservative. And in reality, using my brain is what took me away from conservatism. This is Joe Biden dozing off at the climate conference. Look, I get it. And people are going to be like, the old guy can't even stay awake. He is on the other side of the world. One should mention that this would be the time anybody else is asleep. Look at these young people yawning around him. Anyway, I don't care that Joe Biden falls asleep, but I care about a lot of things about Joe Biden. But the things like Kyle Kalinske was saying about him having dementia and stuff was way, way, way over the line. And people were just being fucking ridiculous about that. And I said his name to point out that I am more than willing to say that somebody on my side was being a fucking dick. Oh, first Halloween in my new neighborhood and didn't get a single trick-or-treater. I didn't get any trick-or-treaters last night. I got two. But one of them was a kid who wasn't even trick-or-treating. Like, it was his parents carrying him around. That's hilarious. It breaks the torsion, or not torsion, the, what is that word? Maybe it is torsion. Breaks it and gets encased in it. I mean, I hope he didn't drown, but then again, it's a snail, or a slug, so I don't give a shit. All right. I want to go to r/am I the asshole. And it's actually AITA. r/AITA. Oh, wait. No, it is r/am I the asshole, but people just shorten it to AITA. Am I the asshole? Oh, I gotta remember to have these transitions in mind. Should we pop back to like this for a second? Just like, all right, we're gonna jump into Am I the Asshole? AITA, whatever it is. We're gonna take a look. I have to do these transitions more naturally so the people watching live don't even realize anything is happening. But I'm not as good at it as like your David Pakmans, apparently. Am I the asshole for kicking out my girlfriend? And sometimes these people are the asshole, but most of the time, I will say, I like the stories. Most of the time, I know how to upvote. Get out of here. Most of the time on Am I the Asshole, the whole point is to get people to back you up. So one thing I want to say always with these stories is keep in mind you are hearing one side of the story. So if the facts are accurate, you could say, basically, I would never go, if personally, I feel like if I ever reply to these, I wouldn't say you are or aren't the asshole. I would say if the facts are true as you've presented them, then you are or aren't the asshole. Anyway, so I have a cat named Raven who's 3 years old. My girlfriend of 2 years moved in with me a few weeks ago, and it was clear she didn't like my cat. I didn't think it was a really big deal until one day I got home and he was just gone. He's not an outdoor cat and he never goes outside. He was gone for hours and I was worried until my buddy came to my house and returned him, saying he found him 2 blocks from my house. I asked my girlfriend how my cat, who has never tried to go out before, ended up that far from the house, and she admitted to kicking him out. I was furious, saying she had no right to kick him out, and told her that since she thought she had the power to kick my cat out, I wanted her out of my house by the end of the month. She cried that she had nowhere to go and that she would have to live on the streets. I said I didn't care and told her to leave by the end of the month. My friends think I'm being too harsh, but my cat could have died because of her, and I don't want her to try anything else. Am I the asshole? So this is one of those ones where it's like, I need to know if you're breaking up. You didn't actually mention that you broke up or not. If you aren't breaking up and you're still sending her to live on the streets, then you might be a little bit of the asshole. But in general, I would say no. And I would say that that is a perfectly reasonable reason to break up and or break a living situation together. Certainly, I would do that if a roommate did that, or if my significant other took my dog and just like dumped him somewhere. It'd be like, oh, you thought I would pick you over the dog. So if the facts are as presented, I would say, no, you're not the asshole. I don't think, if the person is actually worried about living on the streets, I don't think it is unreasonable for that person to be very scared and worried, even to some degree, probably kind of a jerk about trying to get you to change your mind. I wouldn't say it's surprising, not to justify it, but I also like acknowledge how people actually are and how they live and work and shit. I can understand the desperation. However, you will find that often is the case that in relationships, I'm sorry if you can hear the car behind me. It is pretty rare for it actually to be true that they would have nowhere else to go, and that they would end up living actually on the streets. Could it happen? Yeah, of course it could. Could that person be rightfully scared of that possibility? Absolutely. Does that mean that that person gets to act without remorse and do something like that? It's kind of like, so you just thought you would get to do this and there would be zero consequences? Like, these actions are your own, and I'm not going to fucking have you like, honestly, at that point, now I'm starting to worry, like, okay, well, I let you stay. Let's say I let you stay after you do that. Now, where is your mind going? You were already willing to put it out into the elements, not an outdoor cat, not worried about what might happen to it. My brain would go to like such conspiracies of like, now you have to leave the house because I don't know if you're going to try and poison this cat or something and get away with basically doing roughly the same thing. But actually get away with it. It looked like it's not your fault next time. Anyway, don't downvote the assholes. Why they think they might be an asshole. I'm essentially making her homeless. So it looks like this individual does believe that they probably are making that person homeless. And again, it's like, there's a level of empathy I have that does worry about that fucking asshole of a person who was worried about the cat, but you and your cat should be able to live safely. Keep her away from the cat. She's going to hurt him, I guarantee it. Kind of like what I was just saying. I got a little bit of a congestion going. Sniffing up the congestion I didn't think anybody would want to hear. All right, let's go back to another one. Here is an Am I the Asshole post from 11 hours ago. Am I the asshole that I got mad at my wife? Oh, let's bring it back up so you can everybody can see it here. Am I the asshole that I got mad at my wife for eating all the food I had prepared? I and my wife have been married for 5 years. She's 3 months pregnant. You know what? The funny thing is without even reading the rest of the story, my inclination is your wife probably was the asshole in this situation. But if that could just be the pregnancy's fault, and maybe you just have to let it go. Especially if the wife like acknowledges or like says she's sorry or whatever. And maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe it's all. So let's read the story now. But my inclination is like, if that were to happen to me, I would be like, if you weren't carrying my child, I would be very mad right now. But you are, and I'm glad you're eating. But don't let it happen again. Well, no, even that. But then I also I offer to make my partner food and like take care of if my partner gets home from work and I'm home from work, I enjoy doing things for my partner so that they don't have to do basically anything more. They can have a more relaxing evening. So if they want food or whatever, those are often the things I like to do, unless I'm completely exhausted, in which case then everybody just lays around and we try to see if we can justify DoorDash. Let's see. Matt says this is where we need social safety nets. If you knew you could land on your feet, this problem is gone. Hey, that's true. That was about last post for anybody watching this on a clip who doesn't understand. Anyway, am I the asshole? I got mad at my wife for eating all the food I had prepared. I and my wife have been married for 5 years. She's 3 months pregnant. My mom is a diabetic, has high blood pressure, and has poor memory, so she's been staying with me and my wife for the past 2 years, as nursing homes are extremely expensive where I live. I usually do all the cooking at home, and we have one of those stovetop controllers that are password operated to ensure safety in case my mom goes into the kitchen when I'm not at home. Okay. Password operated. I also give my mom all her meds, as she's prone to forgetting whether she's taken meds or not. So far, we've only talked about a mother and not a wife. As usual, I prepared breakfast for the 3 of us, kept my mom's meds on her bedside table, and left for work. I got a call around 4 hours into my shoddy, I think that means shift, saying my mom was in the emergency ward because she passed out from only having her meds and not her food. I rushed to the hospital and found my wife sitting in the emergency ward. Okay, so far your wife is the asshole, because this wasn't just ate your food and made you, it was a little bit of an inconvenience. It sounds like your wife made the decision, the selfish decision, and I have a parallel story to this that is not anywhere near as high stakes, but made a decision that hurt somebody else. Anyway, when I asked her why my mom didn't eat despite me having cooked, she said that she, my wife, had eaten all the food because she was extra hungry. On top of all this, my wife gave my mom her diabetic meds, thinking she hadn't had them yet. I tried to keep my calm, but seeing my mom like that made my blood boil, and I told my wife to just go home. She tried talking to me, but I told her to not test me and that I don't know how much longer I'll stay calm. I made her leave the hospital. Look, those sort of vague threats have an implication of violence in them, and that I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have a different, to me, it's like, if you don't get out of my way, I don't know what I'm going to do if I lose my calm. I would say that threat specifically is quite a bit assholey, but there are maybe versions of that threat where it's like, if you don't get out of my face right now, I'm going to yell at you and tell you how I actually feel. Anyway, she's been texting and calling me, but I haven't replied to her yet. My mom is conscious now, but the doctor said she's still disoriented, doesn't remember much due to the overdose of diabetic meds. She'll have to stay at the hospital for a few more days. Look, the thing is if otherwise you love your wife and there isn't other ginormous problems, yeah, she needs to apologize. Yes, she needs to acknowledge what she did wrong and everything. But the goal should be to get through this, honestly. You're having kids together. If you can make a relationship work, it's better for the kids. If you can't, it's better not to force it for the kids. I would try and make it work. And abandoning somebody during pregnancy, like, they really got to do something bad, I think. Because a lot of people, I feel like, abandon during pregnancy because of the inconvenience. And it's like, shouldn't have made that. You shouldn't have decided to have a kid together. Schedule that abortion. Anyway, I don't know. Like I said, I'm cautious. So let's see. Now, when I was pregnant, I would get really hungry, but before eating all on site, I would tell them, hey, please bring something else because I'm very hungry. Yeah. Mom, like, I totally get the extra hunger. And I understand that, like, some of that hunger with pregnant people feels like yes, I've had 2 meals already today, but I am starving to feeling like I might die. And that's their body basically saying, like, you got to grow a life in here. Get to it. So that is leave in the comments on all of these, on any am I the asshole we're covering. I'd love to hear in the comments, who do you think the asshole was? Because in that situation, I'm thinking it's the wife, but it doesn't mean give up on the relationship. I don't think it should mean give up on the relationship personally. Isolated, it shouldn't. If it is indicative of greater problems and there's actually other things happening along the ways, yeah. Let's see. I'd also be curious if there was a pregnancy mental fog at work here. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that could be a part of it. Let's see. Doopy-doo-ah. It's weird seeing Mika without a wrench because we're on that other channel. If that's the Mika I'm thinking of. Let's see. I don't know. Do we want this one? Am I the asshole for no longer handling my son his allowance after I found out my husband's been taking it? All right, let's do this one. Let's read this one. Am I the asshole for no longer handing my son his allowance after I found out my husband's been taking it? My son, 10, recently started receiving allowance from me since his dad is unemployed, and also because my son likes to have his own money, and I'm realizing, once again, let's get back to this view. Likes to have his own money to spend on stuff he wants. The problem is that I discovered by accident that my husband has been taking the money from our son to buy his own stuff, like cigarettes or a drink. He'd approach our son whenever he has money and tell him he'll buy him what he wants, but ends up spending the money on something else, something for him, not our son. Our son obviously cannot drive by himself and buy his own stuff, so my husband offers to buy stuff for him using, of course, his allowance. I'm a nurse working long shifts most of the time, so I'm not always home. Every time our son wants something, my husband would be like, "Hey, bud, would you like a few bags of Doritos for you and the other kids? I'll stop by the supermarket and get them for you. That would be however much money." Then our son gives him the money, but never receives his Doritos. Rinse and repeat. This went on for 2 months till my son told me. Turns out my husband asked not to tell mommy because she'd get mad at him and he'll be in trouble, and promised to get him stuff, but he never does. I had a big fight with my husband about it. He said it wasn't a big deal since he always ends up getting our son the stuff he wants 99% of the time. He told me to consider this as gas money since he drives some number of kilometers to the supermarket to buy what our son wants. I shamed him for taking advantage of our son and taking the money that was meant for him, and said he was acting like a thief, but worse when stealing from his own son. I then said I won't be handing our son any allowance anymore, and my husband said I was overreacting and punishing our son for no reason. Said I'll handle our son's needs from now on, but he argued that I can't when I'm busy working all the time. I said it was none of his business, and he walked out of the room. He kept negging me, saying my son will resent me if I stop handing him money, but I refused to engage any further in the argument and the guilt tripping. He keeps calling me heartless and financially controlling to take away the allowance. Am I the asshole? No, you aren't. I would say there definitely should be a solution being worked out between you and the kid. Like if you're going to do that allowance, and try and figure out a way, like, here's the deal. I'm going to get you your own bank account with your own debit card, and I'm going to hold on to that debit card. I can take you places, or you can come and get the debit card from me when you're going places with friends or however you're getting there. But under no circumstance are you to give this debit card to your father ever, period, or let your father take you places to use the debit card. Now, that second one might be something that's more like, if you're trying to work this out with your husband, you're trying to stay by and come up with a way that the kid gets the allowance and dad can't interfere. So with that last rule, it might even be the case that you can talk to the dad and be like, I'm getting him this debit card. I will be checking each purchase. I will be checking each receipt. You may take him to use it. I have told him you are never allowed to touch it because you are taking his money and spending it on booze and cigarettes. That's probably what I would do. That's what I would do, I think. It is the Mika. It do be me. Let's see. And telling him to keep it secret, he'll get into trouble. Like what? Yeah, right. I know that's frustrating too, where you're like the parent in this situation, the so-called parent, is using fear tactics to steal from their child. Like that's pretty low. Hello, Megan. Good to see you as always. How are you? Okay. Do we want another Am I the Asshole? For walking our neighbor's dog, but not the other neighbor's dogs? Or more specifically, how I reacted after being pestered for months? Nobody, you don't owe anybody anything. So even if you decide to take one neighbor's dog, you don't, I don't know. Maybe there's details that would make this seem more complicated. Am I the asshole for telling my dad's wife I don't feel comfortable having her walk me down the aisle next to my dad? Thank you, Soap and Clay. Soap and Clay says, such a fun stream. Glad to see this segment return. And there will be more news-like stuff. There will probably be times r/news isn't just clips from a stream. There will be times it'll be like, today I almost, but we hadn't relaunched, but I saw the news that Lindsey Graham had during the insurrection had told police to use their guns and to shoot on the insurrectionists. And now obviously he's acting like, I don't even know if that day was that big a deal. Anyway. All right, am I the asshole for telling my dad's wife I don't feel comfortable having her walk down the aisle next to my dad? This is an interesting one. This is one that there's nuance. This is one where I think a person could be the asshole. So I think let's take a look. Let's see if we think the asshole is here or not. My mom died when I was 12. My dad married Sarah when I was 15. To me, she's always been my dad's wife, not my parent. My step-parent, if you want to use the title, but the woman my dad is married to always fitted best for me. I think my age played a big part in that. She was never a female role model for me. She's never someone I went to for maternal advice. Now I'm getting married. I'd like to know how old this person is now, but I don't look like they included it. Now I'm getting married. I asked my dad to walk me down the aisle. My fiance is also getting walked down the aisle by his dad. My dad's wife thought about this and felt since my fiance's dad never remarried and doesn't have a significant other, she should be included in the walk to show that I have two parents and not just one like my fiance. Well, that's stupid already as reasoning. Like, we don't want people to mistake the fact that there's only one, that you only have one parent like the other person. That's just a weird, like, we want to look better by having two. That's already really stupid if true. Therein lies the problem. To me, I do only have one parent. She never filled any kind of significant role in my life. I appreciate her as the woman who makes my dad happy, but I don't feel like she was much of an influential person in my life, and I don't love her. So the idea of having her be represented as my second parent feels wrong. I will tell you my initial inclination, but this is one a lot of people won't agree with. If it's just that, first of all, I don't think it's routine to have the other person there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure it's routine to have just the father walk the bride, but that's not, that's a vestige of terribleness. So, if it would be the normal thing to have both parents there, and this person has been your step parent for a while, I don't see the big deal. And it would just be kind of like, sure, just do it. I don't care. Like, you don't want to necessarily make a person feel like you reject that they ever became a part of the family. And I really don't think it is that big of a deal. So on my own end, I'd be like, okay, fine. If I actively hated the person or thought they were bad for my parent or whatever, maybe even then. But in general, I also think a lot of marriage stuff is stupid. And anyway, so that's my initial inclination. But let's keep going. I told her I didn't feel comfortable with it, and she told me it was wrong after 10 years of knowing her. She left it alone after that, but then learned that I took a patch out of my mom's wedding dress to add to mine, and she told me I was refusing to represent all my parents and that was wrong. I told her yet again I did not feel comfortable with it. She said I was an asshole, told her dad told her she was overreacting. My sisters are hearing crap about it too. Am I the asshole? I don't think you're the asshole. I think you got to decide who's in your marriage and stuff. But again, personally, I would be like, I don't care. Just fucking whatever. You want to walk there. But if the reasoning is to show that she doesn't only have one parent, like the fiance, it makes it almost sound like a competition, and that's friggin' creepy. I do think if the person is a generally good person, the stepmom is a generally good person, I actually can understand why she feels a little bit slighted, where she's like, 10 years and you still don't consider me a part of the family. And there may have been things that, at, 15 when she took over, where she felt like she did play a parenting role, even if that is rejected by, which, I feel like most children reject that they are being parented after 15 anyway, whether their parents are biological or not. So I'm actually saying I can see the stepmother being hurt here, but it sounds like the stepmother is also now being an asshole with that hurt and sort of like justifying being that asshole, and is apparently talking behind her back and all that kind of stuff because she is hurt. And so that is wrong too. Personally, I would probably, if the person mattered to me at all, but this person said that she doesn't love her. I don't know whether she resents her. I don't know whether or not she actually thinks that she is a bad part of the family. I don't know. But my inclination is usually to just be like, all right, What makes as many people happy without actually doing any harm to me? And if having her walk alongside the dad didn't do any harm or change somebody's perception of you, it's not something that I would have cared heavily about. I would think about the fact that why this might be hurting the other person. And again, this is just one of those situations where I'm almost over empathizing because we only have one person's side of the story. And it could be that there are details the other person would share that would completely change the perspective. And on the internet, we are too inclined to believe we have enough to make that determination. But once again, I will say, if the details here represent basically everything we need to know, it doesn't sound like you're the asshole. But once again, do keep in mind, while I love this thread, the whole concept of am I the asshole is built from the ground up for people to come and be told, no, the other person's the asshole. I do love the rare time where somebody shares something and they're like, nope, it's you. You're the asshole. Definitely you. Let's see. Look, I see what you're saying. Megan Olivia says, surely a genuinely good step parent wouldn't need that kind of recognition and would just be happy to be there and celebrate. I get that. But I also get that a person could feel like there's been a pattern of rejection of you're not really a part of this family. And I could see a person being hurt. So I have no problem with the mother being hurt, but the stepmom being hurt. I have an objection to the asshole ways, the actions that stepmom seems to be justifying because of that hurt. But the actual being hurt itself, I kind of get. Possibly get. Again, I don't know them and their relationship and their family, but I do 100% understand the concept of feeling rejected by a family and feeling like you aren't a part of that family and that they are doing specific actions almost motivated to, my family does certain things to make me feel like less of a family member. And this is my bio family. So I'm just saying, I do understand that potential perspective, but we just don't know enough. Weddings bring out the inner child in everyone. It doesn't matter who they are. It helps to recognize that and try your best to move forward. Yeah. And I just, like I said, don't like weddings. All right. We'll move on to this one. Let's read a couple of titles and see if we want anything more. Then we'll probably check out some news stories and maybe call it a day. Am I the asshole for making my 18-year-old brother watch disturbing videos as punishment? Yes. I feel like I already think so, but I don't know. Let's see what people are saying before we jump in. Not the asshole. You did the right thing. Okay, let's find out. The top vote is not the asshole. First of all, I don't believe in the concept of punishment most of the time anyway. Visual aids can be powerful. I've had 2 friends and 1 friend. Okay, drunk driving. Okay, let's find out. Because I feel like the concept I'm getting in my head of this am I the asshole is pretty bad. Somebody asked, it returns, and I'm not sure what you meant. Let's see. When I was 26, 26 male was 22 years old, I had to step up and take custody of my brother, Isaac. He was 14 then and is now 18. It was really hard on me. I had to step up and suddenly become a parent to him. Our parents were drug addicts and they are not in the picture. And almost all family abandoned us, promised to be there and just never stepped up. Isaac is a really sensitive kid. Sometimes he has really bad panic attacks and needs a huge amount of reassurance. He's not so independent on the emotional side, but he's still very responsible and doing good in school. He just likes to stay with me and live at home while in college. Recently, he had some friends over and they were drinking. We live in Europe. 18 is legal. I didn't mind that until they got out and wanted to drive around. I called Isaac aside. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he only had 1 beer and that's nothing, and he was fine. I said no, and he got upset and started to argue with me. I didn't want to embarrass him, so I told him to go inside and told his friends we had some emergency and that I'm sorry they had to go without Isaac. He had some arguments back and forth. I told him to sit down at the computer and played some compilation of drunk driving videos. Isaac started to freak out after one video, but I made him stay for at least 5 minutes. I was watching it with him. He wasn't having a full-on panic attack, but he was slightly trembling. Sorry, I'm actually still on the... I want to hear from you all. Thank you. Sorry that you have to go here, but I want to hear from you all because I'm leaning asshole, actually. After that, he just apologized and went to his room. He didn't get out for about 3 hours, and when he did, he wasn't talking to me much. Only short answers. I'm scared I traumatized him. Update. I talked to Isaac today. I explained to him why I showed him the videos, explained that one beer can lead to more, and I will always be there to pick him up, even when I have work in the morning. Isaac told me he got more upset that I seemed angry, and not because of the videos. Isaac says he understands and it was a bad idea, and he promised he won't try and do that ever again. I believe him. He also said he expected me to come up to his room, which is something I know now, so there's that. The two of us just drove around, played some music, and enjoyed our time. My little brother is okay, and he is not traumatized. Thank you, everyone, for your judgments. Okay. I want to know what some of y'all's thoughts are before I go on, because I don't want to taint your thoughts, even though I already have tainted it by saying a little bit that I'm still on a certain side. Yeah. Look. Yeah, I know he has severe anxiety. It could have been worse. No, just no. You do not keep a person in anxiety on purpose. She could have tried explaining first instead of showing videos, maybe pictures of cars. You did traumatize him. So we're basically on the same page here, where it looks like most of the chat here is not on that page. I understand. Not the asshole. You probably completely put him off drunk driving. Not the asshole. You showed him exactly what happens if you drive drunk. Not the asshole. You might have been killed in a car crash. First of all, there's a few things at work. One, we have to have the question of, is one beer too much to drive? And personally, I don't probably think so, especially if you've already built up some tolerance. I don't think just going any amount of alcohol in your system is too much, because if we do say that, then we have to start policing a lot of other stuff. Because, for example, tired driving is actually mentally, like, as far as what you are capable of, your reaction times are actually less than the minimum for drunk driving. That is a thing I have heard, but I don't have the thing. I think it actually might. I tried to give the conservative explanation. So the question is, does any amount of the alcohol in the system? And there was this slippery slope argument of one beer could lead to more beers. And if that's the situation, that's a discussion you should have, where it's like, if you're going to do this, you have to promise me that it's not going to be that. If you're going to do this, I need to know this. I need to know you know how to do these things responsibly. I need to know that it's not going to be more than one beer. Going straight to intentionally trying. And by the way, you don't get to say after the fact we talked about it and they said they're not traumatized, so they're not, because you do not know that at all. And in fact, if you ask anybody with like a chronic anxiety issue, like if they are traumatized by something or how bad their anxiety is, they are always going to underplay it. Like, it's asking somebody if they're traumatized is rarely going to get, especially directly after. You don't even know the longstanding effect. Now, listen, is it possible you could have a conversation with a person and say, like, I have seen pictures like this and I'd like to show them to you. Are you in a mindset right now to do that? There is the potential that might be something, but I am going to try and invoke a trauma response to this. It reminds me of the scare straight stuff. That has nothing to do with homosexuality, for the record. It has to do with like taking kids to be screamed at by prisoners and scare them into not becoming repeat offenders and stuff. And it doesn't work. These things don't work. And so I would actually say, yeah, you're kind of the asshole here. I think that was an asshole move to jump to let's. And look, if people disagree, you can send me a comment or whatever. If you want to privately send an email, we did set up our/news@gmail.com. And then there's my normal emails, and you don't have to do it publicly where you have to worry about getting. But look, I'm just looking at this thing and the fact that so many of these people, and this is the hard part. Like, you know what? Another subreddit I really like is called Narcissistic Parenting, or Narcissistic Parents, or no, Raised by Narcissists. And I like reading the stories there and sort of seeing like trauma bonding with strangers, basically. But there's something cathartic about reading those stories. But then somebody posted one day that they were like, hey, by the way, now like from being in this thread and my personal life experience, I have determined that I basically have a superpower. And they're basically like, does anybody else have the ability to tell a person is a narcissist within 5 minutes of meeting them? And I expected to go to the comments and see a bunch of people going like, no, that's not okay. You shouldn't feel that way. You should start doubting yourself more. Even if you were absolutely had diagnosed narcissistic parents, even as a therapist, if you were a therapist, a psychologist who had diagnosed narcissistic parents and you had the education to back up, it would still be wrong of you to determine within 5 minutes of meeting a person that they are a narcissist, because diagnosis, there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot and now you have this confirmation bias problem where you are so on edge to identify it all the time that you are going to see it places you aren't. And the concept of narcissism should not just be treated as this person's ego sometimes show. You have to have a lot more than that. It is basically this idea of like, and so I expected to see comments where people are like, hey, listen, that's too far and you shouldn't think that. That comment didn't exist. Almost every comment after comment after comment after comment was me too. Yep, I sure do too. Oh yeah, I can tell within seconds. I can just look at a person and tell they're a narcissist, which ironically sounds a little narcissistic, but you aren't going to get. And so I think that's what's kind of happened here, where it's like, there are so many people that are like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Like it's the equivalent of someone being like, am I the asshole for hitting my kid to show them that hitting another kid is wrong? I'm like, no, it makes sense. They probably, now they know. And it's like, nope, actually hitting your kid's always wrong. Except to save a life, I suppose. Like, I shouldn't say always wrong, because always never makes sense. It almost always never makes sense to actually say always, to be so definite. But it's like always, if you have to punch your kid to stop them from stabbing somebody, I guess that's a different thing. But for the most part, it's never okay to hit your kids. And so it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes the stories are great to read and they're great to like think through and go like, oh, okay, if the details are right. And again, that's something we all have to be keeping track of. This idea of like, are the details we're hearing all the details we would include if we were in the story, if we were on the other side of the story? Do we actually know everything we need to know to make this evaluation? The answer is going to almost always be no, but people don't like that. People like having this feeling of definitive authority, and then they go join a church. I'm just kidding, but only kind of. Lucille Knight says, I am 2 weeks into my deconversion from Christianity. You are one of the major influences who helped me become more skeptical and break out of my religious echo chamber. Thank you for everything you do. Lucille, I really, really appreciate that. Actually, a whole lot. That's amazing to hear. And I hope that actually part of this show, this hour/news, this version of things that I'm working on here, part of it is actually to get, I'm hoping that I can promote how to think skeptically without doing an emporium on skepticism. So even just pointing out things like this, never think you know whether the person is the asshole. Just add that little clarifier of, if the details are as shared, this person is or isn't the asshole in my assessment. Like just having even just that little amount of awareness, having these little pieces where it's not like you can't interact with things and go like, well, I don't know all the details, so I'm not even going to say anything. You just have to be honest and clarifying and skeptical. And I'm actually hoping that that's something we can do with this series, which as a way to end the show, I cannot think of a better sort of note to end on for the moment anyway. And I'm realizing my partner is going to be home very soon, so this is a good time to go also. But if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You're going to start to see clips coming out here probably soon. I'm going to try and head to my actual studio. This is my little home workspace. I'm going to try and head to my studio and find the old transition in card and work on those clips, then work on some stuff for Dear Mr. Atheist. But hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. As you see these clips come up, if you feel like there's a part of the conversation you really liked, that you want other people to talk about in the comments, that am I the asshole concept and the other things that we did, the anti-work stuff, please share those out. And when you share, it's always great. If you want more post engagement for yourself on top of sharing other people's stuff, this doesn't even have to be my videos, anybody's. It's sharing anything. Ask the audience you're presenting something you're sharing to a question about it. So literally just asking like, who do you think the asshole was, can be a great way too. So this is a series that I hope it does well. If I could spend every day streaming and then clipping and then doing Dear Mr. Atheist on the side of that, that sounds like the recipe for happiness to me, because this is something I enjoy doing, and it's like something I would be doing anyway, is losing time scrolling Reddit. I'm subscribed already. Did you change the name of the channel? Yeah, so this channel has been named like 9 different things. It used to be called Jimmy Snow, What Do You Know? Then it was called Our/News. Then it was called Jimmy Snow Adventures, Hobbies, and whatever, because at the time I was thinking anybody would give a shit watching me electric scoot or ride my one wheel. And what little tests I did, no one really did. I'm still going to make those posts, by the way, but with more. Yeah, I just, so that's why you were probably already subscribed. Let's see. I'm going to go see if I can find a way to make $2,000 in 2 weeks so I can stay at school. LMAO, bye. I'll see y'all soon. That is a tough and heavy charge. And I wish you the best of luck, because yeah, if anytime you're just like, yeah, I just need $2,000 in 2 weeks. That is tough to pull off. I really hope things go well for you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Yeah, I know YouTube does unsubscribe people from things. You will see more versions and iterations of this. It'll probably be on Twitch, on my Twitch channel, Jimmy Alexander Snow. I'll try and get links and stuff in the description as I'm working on stuff later too, and get all of that stuff squared away. So the streaming portion without the clips in the future will probably be on Twitch, but for a while we'll probably do YouTube, then maybe both, and then switch to just Twitch. Well, we'll see. We'll see how we do that, because we won't be able to do live chats from both at the same time. It's all hard. It's all tough. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks again. We'll fade to black. Oh, I even have a black screen ready to go. Fade.